Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our weekly town hall with the Nevada Assembly Republican Caucus. My name is Michelle Mortensen. I am the communications director for the Nevada Assembly Republican Caucus and your host each and every single week. We are so glad to have you here. And of course, every single week, we have with us Gregory Hafen. Of course, he is the minority leader for the Nevada Assembly Republican Caucus, and he has had a very busy day, but this is super important to him that we are having opportunities to speak with you directly. So, Assemblyman Hafen, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Hey Michelle, hey everyone out there. It's good to see you guys all. Been a long day, been a long week already. We just got done listening to the Nevada Supreme Court give us the state of judiciary. Very encouraging, and a lot of good things mentioned, especially after the hearing that we had last night in our Ways and Means meeting. A lot of doom and gloom. We discussed a lot of the items that the state had to cut during the Great Recession, as well as the COVID shutdown, lockdown, pandemic. Um, and I asked, why not talk about the Great Depression while we're at it? But after the hundreds of hours staff putting it together, we didn't have time in the 4+ hours the meeting lasted. But we did spend a good portion of time on how we can raise taxes on you, the people, whether it was gaming tax, mining tax, property tax, inherent tax, you name it. We discussed it last night. Very interesting. They even mentioned specific bills that are in the pipeline to increase thresholds and really restructure how things would get taxed. They even talked about increasing fuel tax because price of gas is coming down finally, thanks to President Trump and drill baby drill in the Gulf of America. But now we got to raise taxes on fuel because prices are coming down.
Okay, so I think that begs an even bigger question. And if people don't quite understand what you just said, essentially, you had a committee meeting for 4+ hours yesterday that said, let's find all the ways we can raise taxes. So that begs a huge question. Why are we even looking at, oh, let's find ways to raise taxes? Not just because, taxes, no one wants taxes, but is there an issue? Is there a problem? Or they just said, hey, let's spend 4 hours talking about it? Like, what was the reason for this?
Well, I have been frustrated, and I've told all of you that I have been very frustrated with the uh, our federal delegates on the Democrat side. They have been doing nothing but fear mongering, spewing misinformation out there, telling everybody that President Trump and Elon Musk is going to they're going to cut all the Medicaid. They're going to cut this and that. And you know what? They haven't done any of that. They said we want to end fraud, waste, and abuse. And so Senator Dr. Titus and I asked our fiscal staff, how much Medicaid fraud have we actually had in the state of Nevada in the last 4 or 5 years? It's very interesting. Been about $8 million, about 32 million over the last 5 years, that we've actually uncovered ourselves, and these individuals have been prosecuted, and the money's been returned to the state. That's just what we found using our current attorney general's office, and so we know there's more out there, and so all of the trading. We had more of that we have to increase taxes to cover all these cuts that haven't happened yet, don't look like they're going to happen. Um, but I will say it was very interesting to see some of the areas that we could reduce our spending as a state. And I took some really good notes and was like, hey, you know what? I kind of like cutting some of this stuff. Sounds like a good idea. Some of it I don't agree with. I don't think we need to cut. Um, and so, very, very interesting conversation last night. But at the same time, um, I'm still very frustrated with a lot of the fear mongering that is going on, especially at the federal level.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it was basically fear mongering. Now, as we know, when we do these town halls weekly, we get a lot of questions on Instagram, Facebook, StreamYard, all of the ways that we're going live. And we already have quite a few questions coming in, and we had some things we wanted to let people know about as well. So before we get to your questions, I promise we are going to get to those. And there are so many about women's sports right now. But I wanted to let everyone know about something that's happening tomorrow that has not gotten a lot of media attention yet. I don't even think people know that it's happening. But the Democrats are hearing two big gun bills tomorrow. And these are bills that the governor has already previously vetoed. Give us an update there.
Yeah, so they're actually doing a joint hearing for judiciary. It'll be jointly with the Assembly and the Senate. If you're up here in Carson City or in the area and you want to come by and testify in opposition, it'll be in room 4100, 1 p.m. A little bit different schedule than the normal judiciary, but it is 1 p.m. If you're down in the Vegas area, you can go down to our office building there off of Amigo, or you can call in. And I know Michelle has been putting out the contact information on all of our media pages. So there's a call in number plus a code. You can look that up. But the two assembly bills are AB 105 and AB 245. AB 105 would basically prohibit firearm possession within 100 feet of an election site, and make it a category D felony if you are to do it. Um, this isn't a problem. We have not had issues with this. There are already laws and penalties in place. If you intimidate someone at an election site, the governor vetoed this last legislative session. And to be honest, I don't believe that any of the veto message was even addressed. And then Assembly Bill 245, also vetoed last legislative session, would prohibit people under the age of 21 from owning a firearm, specifically semi-automatics. So individuals that can go to war and die for our country are no longer able to own a firearm to protect their family. Very disconcerting, frustrating, and again, did not address the veto message from last session. And then, Michelle, there is another one. There's a Senate bill that's going to be heard tomorrow, and that's SB 89, that talks about prohibiting people who have been convicted of hate crimes or being involved in hate crimes, and from owning firearms. And again, uh, not aware of this actually being a real issue. More of a problem looking for a solution, looking for a problem. Yeah, solution looking for a problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's get to some of these questions because they are coming in so fast and furious. I don't even know that we'll get to them all today. But our first question is from Pauline Lee. She says, "Is there any chance to have the Protect Women's Sports bill heard?" And that was very timely because yesterday was a great day for Assemblyman Berger's bill AB 240, which is the Protect Women's Sports bill. While it isn't officially slated for a hearing because the Democrats are in control of that, we brought the message directly to the Democrats yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah, no, I got to say it was really nice to meet all of the Protect Women's Sports gals. They were here in the building. They were on the floor with Bert, and actually spread out amongst all of us on the floor yesterday. I got a chance to sit down and chat with them for a few minutes with Dr. Titus, and then they did something that was great. You know, the Democrats are refusing to allow this to have a hearing. No matter how many times we ask, no matter how many emails you send in, they're just refusing to hear. And so what they did is they went to the education hearing under public comment, and they asked for a hearing on that bill. And it was great because Riley Gaines tweeted out about it and promoted the bill and just really highlighted these young gals fighting for what women have fought for decades. And so super proud of those young ladies for getting here, standing up, voicing their opinions, and saying we really want a hearing for this bill. And they did it in a very respectful manner. Um, there was a staff member, it's all over Twitter right now, who took the sheet of paper from those young girls, crumbled it up in front of them, and threw it in the trash. And frankly, it's very disrespectful and very unprofessional. I know that is being looked into. Because staff is not supposed to treat our constituents and especially our children in that manner. So very, very disappointed in that, but that matter is being looked into. And Pauline, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I was trying to pull up the Riley Gaines tweet because I have it, and I just wasn't fast enough to do that. Also, just today, I uploaded on the Nevada Republican Caucus Instagram page, if you haven't seen it, some of the testimony that the girls gave yesterday. Such powerful testimony of how these little middle school girls, 12 years old, 13 years old, we had high school, middle school, college athletes all give their testimonies in the Committee on Education hearing yesterday during public comment. You can see some of their very moving testimony on the Nevada Republican Caucus Instagram page. So definitely check that out. Those are some brave girls who not only went into their Democrats' offices to talk about this, but they actually did kind of create their own hearing yesterday so that we can get this message out. And there's still much more to come on this one. Someone's asking if there was video of the incident that allegedly happened with a member of staff. I don't believe there is any video of that incident. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's no video to my knowledge of that taking place. It was in an office. There are, as far as I'm aware, there's no cameras in the office. There's cameras in the hallways, but not in the actual offices where it took place. But there were multiple eyewitnesses.
Okay. All right. We have a question now from Michael Ryan. This is one of, it's more of a comment, but it's one that we bring up a lot. It says, where is Doge in Nevada when you need it? Well, I think we kind of discussed that a little bit just a few moments ago. You guys are the line of defense right now. The Republicans in the caucus who are making sure that these plans to bring back every tax under the sun doesn't happen, correct?
Yeah, and actually, it was great kind of Doge-like hearing last night where we talk about all the cuts that have taken place over the years, and really kind of talked about what we can do. What I will say to the actual question is a couple things happening. Business and industry has been they've been working on it for almost 2 years now in looking at ways where we can eliminate various agencies, consolidate various boards, to really streamline and make our boards and commissions a lot more efficient. And so they've last I talked to them, they had about 40 boards. They were going to merge into less than 20. Should save somewhere between 15 and $20 million. That's phase two, I guess, of what they're planning on doing. And then they have a phase three where they really want to go in and look at a lot of these smaller boards and commissions and eliminate a bunch of them. The state of Nevada has 300 and I don't know, ballpark 350 boards and commissions out there. And so they really want to cut it. And so I've actually asked them to get me that list of what it is that they think they can do in their phase three in the event that, the sky actually does fall and there's a lot of cuts that we need to make. Sounds like a perfect time for us to start cutting all these different agencies and boards and commissions that have already been identified as things that we really probably don't need. And so that's the approach the state of Nevada has been doing. We kind of were doing Doge before there was Doge. And in the bill, just so you guys know, if you want to go look it up, it's Senate Bill 78. It's on the Senate side. It's being amended. It's being tweaked. That's the one that's going to consolidate some of the major boards and commissions. And it's really just the starting point, the launching off of what is to come at the direction of Governor Lombardo.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to more of our viewer questions. And it's so funny because while I was in Carson City, this came up multiple times this week. This is from Jerry, who's saying, he wants everyone to propose something about dismantling CCSD, because that is something that he feels needs to be happening when it comes to education. This is a very hot topic, and I was talking to Northerners who are up north, and they didn't realize that this was as big of a topic down here. This is a hot topic, but it's not as easy as just proposing that, because our Constitution kind of says, hey, the county has to be the school district. So it's a very long and complicated process to amend the Constitution, correct?
Well, if we back up in history and you go back to the 2017 legislative body, they actually directed the Clark County School District to um, determine how it should break up, because it has been known for a very long time that the Clark County School District is way too large. And they are always at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to educating our children. And the big problem is that they are so large. Um, and then we've had various proposals over the years of um, maybe we let the municipalities just opt out of the school district. One was brought by Assemblyman Urick and Senator Stone last session, which would have let the Mawapa Mesquite area create their own school district. Last session, I believe it was under the governor's direction and proposal to allow municipalities like Henderson or Boulder City or North Las Vegas for them to actually opt out of the Clark County School District. Um, it has not been very popular on the other side of the aisle. I personally think that it is a good idea. I think that the argument of splitting up the Clark County School District is, you're picking winners and losers. The easiest thing to do is say there's a city line, you move to the city of Henderson or North Las Vegas. You knew that that was the boundaries when you went there, and if they're able to take over their schools and do a better job, which I think that you can when you shrink the size of it, they should be allowed to do that. And so those conversations are still going on in this building. I have not seen a bill this legislative session, though, to do such. Um, but the governor's education bill has not been dropped yet. So let's wait and see where that heads.
Absolutely. We've got another education question from Sue Quayle in Pahrump. She wants to know, how will Trump's executive order regarding the dismantling of the Department of Education specifically affect CCSD immediately? Will the new superintendent have any changes in her plans because of that executive order?
So great question. Basically, what Trump's executive order does is um, takes a lot of the administrative level and says, you know what, we don't need these 3,000 administrators in Washington, D.C. any longer. We're going to shift that funding and those job duties to other areas and other agencies, whether it's, ag or I can't remember some of them off the top of my head. So a lot of the services that were already being done are going to be redistributed to other areas, which is going to allow the federal government to be more efficient, cut a lot of the top heavy administration cost, and really be able to hopefully be able to send more money back to the states, which would then help the Clark County School District, Nye County School District, Washoe County School District have additional funds from the federal government. Or President Trump could just help us lower our taxes and put more money in our own pocket. Either way, I'm happy because I like getting more of our federal dollars back in your pocket and back into our state in one way, shape, or form. And so, to me, he really isn't dismantling the Department of Education. He's really just breaking it up, redistributing how the things and the functions will be handled into different areas. So really, I don't think there's going to be much change when it comes to the education, other than I do think that there'll be some more efficiencies, additional money coming in from the federal government, whether it's into your pockets or directed to the school districts. And then I do want to touch on that the Clark County School District does have a new superintendent, Joan Ebert, former director of the Nevada Department of Education. I think she's going to do a much better job. I have a lot of hope for her. Very happy that she took the position. obviously we lost a good state employee, but I do think that she's up for the challenge. It's a big challenge. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of changes that need to be changed over there. But I do have faith that she will do a very, very good job for Clark County and make some serious improvements.
Absolutely. All right. Which our next question comes from Pauline again. She says, "Which tax proposals concern you the most of what the Democrats were pitching yesterday?" And also, she wanted to know if we can raise the threshold. All of them, Pauline. That's an easy answer. All of them.
Everything, Pauline. Everything. 170-page PowerPoint presentation yesterday. You can go and pull it up and look at it yourself if you like. But it just, increased taxes on small business. We've got gaming taxes, mining taxes, LET taxes. You name it, it was in here. They even talked about increasing the liquor taxes. Sorry, I'm just kind of going through some of the ones that I highlighted. And sales and use tax. They even talked about increasing sales tax, which hurts every single one of us right at home when we go to the grocery store and try to take care of our family. So it was a little frustrating, but again, very informative. Our staff is great, very knowledgeable. So yeah, everything scares me, Pauline. We're in session, so.
Yeah, exactly. And these were just them basically spitballing ideas. It wasn't like anything's on the table and they're going to do it. But she had a second part of her question was, can we raise the threshold for the commerce tax? And I do believe PK did have a bill to do that. But I guess a better question is actually, why aren't we talking about repealing the commerce tax?
So I want to back up, Michelle, because there were specific bills that were mentioned last night, and
Oh,
and then on the topic of the commerce tax, PK's bill was not mentioned. Um, what was mentioned was the Democrat bills that would have actually lowered the threshold from 4 million to 3.5, and then there was another one that I can't remember exactly where it addressed the threshold. So instead of talking about, hey, there's two different alternatives here, we can raise the threshold by a cost of living, or we could lower it. They only talked about lowering the threshold, which means increasing the taxes on more small businesses. And so it was very, very interesting to sit through that and to listen. It was all about raising taxes. There was no conversation about lowering it. And as everybody knows, when President Trump lowered taxes his last term, we actually saw additional revenue going into the federal government because it spurred the economy. People were investing in more small businesses, growing their businesses, which then ultimately increased tax revenue to the federal government. So rather than having that conversation last night, we just talked about how we could tax people more.
I see. I see. So in this, so they did have actual there were bill hearings for new taxes
N-
yesterday. It wasn't just an information idea.
Not bill hearings. It was just strictly informational, but they did, mention about half a dozen different bills that are floating out there. And I didn't write the bill numbers down, but they are out there, and they are going to get hearings here pretty soon.
And let's talk about that for a quick second. Hearings. We have until April 22nd, I believe, for all of these bills to get hearings. And does that mean if they aren't heard by April 22nd, which is less than a month away?
No,
Uh
it's April 11th. They have to
okay.
get out of committee. So that means they have to have a bill hearing and get a work session and then vote it out of the committee during the work session to send it to the floor. The April 22nd deadline is first house passage. That means that all of the assembly bills have to be passed out of the assembly and sent over to the Senate, and vice versa. All the Senate ones have to be sent over to us. So we're coming up to some deadlines here on that. And I got to give a shout out to our staff again because they are just amazing. We had a deadline on Monday, uh, and I kid you not, we were done at 1 p.m. That is unheard of. We are normally working very late into the evening on the deadlines, but our staff has been so great at producing our bills, drafting the language, and getting them out that we were literally done at 1 p.m., which was good because it gave us some time to get some more work done, try to be as efficient as we can. And so always got to give a shout out to our great staff for all their hard work. A lot of time, a lot of effort. There's roughly 1,000 bills out there. I think we're at 540 on the assembly side and a little less than 500 on the Senate side.
Okay, interesting, because this was the next thing I was going to bring up. I'm looking at our hearing tracker, that internal document that we have, and this might not be updated with this week, so that might be where the numbers are a little different. But it looks like 47.6% of Democrat bills have been heard so far. 17.12% of Republican bills have been heard so far. 21% of the bills heard so far were nonpartisan, and 13% have been committee bills. So that is, and we only have till the 11th for everyone's bills to get a hearing and a work session and get through committee.
That's correct. There are a lot of Republican bills that, frankly, are just not going to get a hearing. That's what happens when you're in the minority. You just don't get hearings on all your bills. We've been working really hard. I know all the members have been going to the various chairs to request hearings. Um, some have been successful, others have not, and but it doesn't mean that we're not still trying to get out there and get hearings on our bills, and try to move some of the legislation forward that's important to you guys. Um, but we are running into time constraint. We've only got a couple more weeks to get things out of committee and over to the floor, and then obviously send over to the Senate. So we're in
And then
crunch time.
if we get to April 11th and maybe a bill hasn't been heard and moved out of committee, does that mean we're dead in the water, or is there opportunities for things to get rolled into other things or emergency bills? I mean, is it really over, or are there other things?
So I know you laugh, Michelle, because you know the answer. Nothing is ever dead in this building until we sine die and we go home. And I say that because, as Michelle mentioned, there are ways of amending language from one bill into another bill. Um, there are emergency bills that could be brought forward. So if we can come to an agreement on a bill that had not had a hearing, we can submit it as an emergency matter, bring it back, and get it up for a vote on the floor. And then there's the infamous conference committee where really there's no rules. You can do whatever you want and slip anything you want into anything. And man, it makes you very nervous. You got to be very, very cautious on what's going on and careful. Um, so you'll see people in conference committees at the very end of session. I was in one of those last time, and you really have to read every single word to make sure that what's happening is actually happening and that things don't get snuck by you. But none of that happened last session. But again, you do have to be very cautious. So nothing's ever dead until we leave this building and go home. Um, but the deadlines are deadlines, and most things that don't meet the deadlines will not be resurrected.
All right. So the real takeaway is, the next couple of days, the next 2 weeks, they're going to be fast and furious. So be connected to our Instagram, be connected to our Facebook, be connected to our Twitter, because there's going to be a lot of things coming in and out throughout the next couple of days. All right. There are so many questions and there's so many comments. It's hard to get to them all. One just popped up, so I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to get to Jerry's question about the film tax. This one is from Deidre. She wants to know, what's Nevada's sanctuary status?
We are not a sanctuary state, contrary to what Attorney General Ford put out in his guidelines. We are not a sanctuary state.
Plain and all right, sorry. Plain and simple. Sorry, I am working on multiple social media channels and trying to handle the comments all at the same time. So if I'm a little delayed, I apologize for that. next question, and Jerry has had fast and furious comments about this throughout, and that's why I was getting it lost a little bit. And he wants to know about the film tax credits and the film legislation that's going on right now. Those have received hearings, I do believe. Have those gone through committee, gotten their work session? Are they definitely going through? What's the status with those?
So there was two film tax credit bills that were moving forward. One was Warner Brothers on the Senate side, Sony on the Assembly side. Sony and Warner Brothers decided right before the hearing on the Assembly side to merge in together and give a presentation. That was a very long hearing. I think it was 3 or 4 hours long. And the short and skinny is basically they're asking for $100 million a year in film tax credits. And at the same time, we're having hearings to discuss how we're going to cut the budget and potentially have to raise taxes to pay for everything else. So is the intent to raise taxes to pay for film tax credits? I don't know. All I know is that we're struggling to get through the bill, to get through our budget, to find the money that we need for education, for healthcare, to maintain our roads. The essential services that we need to provide. And so I don't know where the film tax credits are going right now. All I do know is that it is a lot of money. It's a 15-year commitment at over $100 million a year, and I just don't know where the money is going to come from to justify that and to make that work. $100 million a year into education would probably go a long way to help teachers get raises or improve our education system. And I'm not saying that throwing money at a problem is the solution, but if you're asking me what's more important, our children or movies, I'm going to go with our children.
100%. Our children are absolutely more important. There is no doubt about that. Let's talk a little bit about getting in on the process. In your opinion, particularly with us knowing the next couple of weeks or good next 2 weeks really are going to be very busy with a lot of committee hearings. How important is it for folks in Pahrump and Clark County or anywhere in the state to be involved in the hearing process? I mean, when regular folks testify at these committees, does it mean anything? Does everybody tune out? How essential is this?
Well, Michelle, you mentioned it earlier when we talked about the Protect Women Sports girls that came up and testified. It got a lot of immediate attention. And nationally, Riley Gaines is retweeting this information out and talking about it and highlighting this. That puts a lot of pressure when the national media starts pushing back on it. And so you think, you mentioned, well, it doesn't really matter. Do people really pay attention? I guarantee you that the people in this building are paying attention because you look at what the coverage is coming out and it's being talked about. I mean, I had Democrats coming up to me today talking to me about, hey, blah 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 on this thing. I saw these girls come in and did this really happen? And so yeah, it does help. We do listen. Um, it doesn't mean that we're going to get a hearing, but it does help get the conversation moving and going in the right direction to make sure that people understand this is what's going on. And so I always encourage people, if you can show up and testify in person, it's always great to see your face. Stick around so I get a handshake afterwards, or testify on the phone, call in, go to the Vegas hearing office, especially on the big items, like tomorrow with the gun hearings. I think that it's so important that we have a lot of people show up in opposition, support our Second Amendment, call in. I have a feeling that testimony will be limited. Today in Health and Human Services, for example, they limited the comments to 2 minutes each, and there was going to only be 20 minutes in support, 20 minutes in opposition, 20 minutes in neutral, and then they did circle back and allow additional comments to go because they had not taken up the full hour. And so they did allow for additional support testimony during Health and Human Services.
Exactly. And so I have the number on the screen right now. If anyone watching does indeed want to call and testify tomorrow, the number is 888 475 4499. And then once you get through that number, oh, that's not what I wanted to put up. There we go. Then you want to use meeting ID, and you can see this on the screen right now. 88699651578, and then press pound. Now they let you know as you're watching. You can watch this live on YouTube. You just go to type in Nevada legislature and you will get to their page, and you can watch committee hearings live all the time. And then when you use this number, that's when you can go ahead and provide public comment. Also, the Clark County Republican Party is watching right now. They have a lot of great information that I put on the screen right there. And then I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, Mr. Hafen, in that tomorrow, is it in judiciary? Yes,
It's in
judiciary.
Judiciary.
Yeah. And what time is that tomorrow?
It's 1 p.m. Again, Judiciary. Thanks for putting the information up there. And it'll be in room 4100 up here. I don't know what room it'll be in the Migo office, but if you ask somebody there at the front desk, I'm sure that they'll be able to direct you to exactly where the committee hearing is. And the other thing is, if you're not able to make it there because it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and a lot of us have day jobs, you can write an email in opposition or support. This is America. You still have your freedom of speech. At least I think you do. And so if there's any bills you ever want to support, you can write in letters of support, emails of support. And I saw Michelle had put that up there. And again, we understand that people work. I have a day job that probably not doing enough at yet. So Dad, Aunt Vicky, you're listening. Sorry. Owe you a few hours when I get home.
There you go. There you go. All right. Chelsea's got a question. It's a great question. She said, not all of us can keep up with the daily testimony, so our district will instead be discussing what we want vetoed by the governor instead. Let's talk about vetoes for a minute. That's kind of where my mind was going with that comment. So we don't know what the governor will veto or what they won't veto. But one of the big things that I think the Nevada Assembly Republican Caucus is doing, one of the most important and strongest things that we're doing, is now that we are not in that super minority, because we got Rebecca Edgeworth's seat, one of the biggest things you're doing is you're holding down the fort for the governor, and that all those things the Democrats are trying to bring back to overturn his veto, you guys are standing strong.
Oh yeah, no, I gotta give credit to all of my Republican assemblymen and women. We have all said from day one, we will not override the governor's veto. There's 4 bills that are still sitting on the chief clerk's desk that they can bring up for a vote at any time. And we have said that, we will be the backstop for the governor's veto. We will not override a veto. And for good reasons. The bills that are sitting on the chief clerk's desk right now, not a single Republican voted in favor of those bills. We all voted in opposition. So why would we even consider overriding one of those vetoes when we've already said loud and clear we are a no vote? We will not vote for these. And the other thing I want to mention that I think that we've done a really good job with this session is working with the governor's office and working with the Senate. I meet with either the Senate's counterparts and or the governor himself and or his staff on just about every single day basis, working collaboratively together to go through the bills as they're coming forward, so we could try to address things. Because at the end of the day, there are bills that could we rework them to make them so they are something that works for the state of Nevada. A lot of times there's not bad a bad policy that people want to bring for bad reasons. It's just the way things get drafted sometimes isn't great. And so we're working collaboratively with our Senate counterparts, with the governor's office, to try to address those before they even get to his desk, so he does not have to veto them. Now, I will tell you though, there are bills like 3 gun bills, actually, I think, that are basically the exact same language that came forward last session that we all voted against. The governor vetoed. There's no changes. And they've gone on the record saying, yeah, there's no changes to this bill at all. It's the exact same bill that the governor vetoed last session. And well, that's a little disingenuous. Let's work across the aisle. Let's try to make things work. And again, there are other bills that are completely bipartisan that will probably be unanimous in both houses. The governor signs into law. And those are the kinds of policies that we should be working on, not just trying to say, well, I'm going to bring back the same bill as last time that was vetoed and see if he'll veto it again. Well, yeah, he's going to veto it again.
Yeah, of course. All right. There's a lot going in the chat right now. A lot's going on in the chat. And one of the things I kind of, rather than bringing up all of these comments, I'm just going to kind of group in what they're saying and let you have an opportunity to comment. There are people who are saying, oh, the GOP's weak. We can't do anything. We can't get the hearings. We're weak. We're weak. We're weak. I'd like to remind everyone, especially those who haven't been out here, haven't been to Carson City, don't quite know how the process goes. Not everything happens out in the open. Some fights happen behind closed doors. And if there's anyone who's thinking that this Nevada Republican caucus is not fighting and working hard and being the bulldogs, they are, but not all of it is done right in the middle of your face, because there's a reason for that. There is an art to politics, and I think there's just a lot of comments on there about ineffectiveness. There is no ineffectiveness here. It's very effective. We just don't always throw everything in your face every second.
Yeah, that's a great point, Michelle. And if you read President Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, you'll learn that there's some strategy behind when to poke the bear, when not to poke the bear, and how to strategize things. And that's actually been something that's been wonderful this session, working with Governor Lombardo, is that we're able to strategize collaboratively with both houses, because both houses are out of the super minority now. And so there's a lot of strategy. Don't want to put it out there in the public realm to let the Democrats know, but we're working collaboratively on that. And we are pushing back when we need to. Sometimes you don't see a lot of that because we're able to do some things behind. I don't like to say behind closed doors, but behind the scenes, to make sure that the message is sent loud and clear. And the governor himself says he's putting his foot down on certain items, and he refuses to budge. And so, very proud of all my colleagues, my team, and everything that they're doing, because we are running and operating as a well-oiled machine right now. You may not see a lot of the things that we're doing, but we are out here working. We are out here fighting very hard, but we're being very strategic with how we do things.
100%, 100%. Now, Michael has a question that's kind of related to that, but bringing a bit more of what power the governor may or may not have. He asks, does the governor have the power to flex more muscle to have the critical women in sports and education bills heard? So that's an interesting question. Is there muscle that he can flex to force this Democrat controlled legislature to do certain things, or is that not an option? How does that work?
So the governor has his 5 priority bills that are coming forward, and he is working to, just like all of us, to get a hearing on those bills. They don't have the same time constraints that we have. We just exempted, I believe, 4 of his bills from the time frames and restrictions, and so he's working on that. I believe only one of his bills is on the Assembly side, and the rest of them are starting on the Senate side. So I know that he's been meeting with the Senate Majority Leader to work on getting those hearings and move those things forward. And he'll get those on a hearing. As far as women's in sports, the Democrats have drawn a very hard line in the sand, and they, for some reason, support men playing in women's sports. And to me, it just boggles my mind, and I don't understand why that is something that that they believe in so strongly that they won't even have and entertain a conversation in a hearing setting that they control, because they're the chair. They get to decide how long the questions and comments are. Um, and I think that it's something that we should be discussing. It's something that we should be hearing and having the debate, and letting both sides discuss it. So, um, as far as the governor's bills, he's flexing his muscles when he needs to get the hearings, but he's being strategic about it.
All right. We also have a question from Pete. Pete says he's talked to Commissioner Koenig and wrote a letter to the governor about capturing money from electric cars for the damage they are doing to our roads. Is there anything happening about that?
Great question. That actually was one of the 170 slides that was presented. Let's see if I can flip to it real quick, because there has been some conversation in previous years of how to address that. And I can't get to the page right now, but over the previous years, there's been a couple of proposals. One of the proposals was just to increase the registration fee, to account for the cost of the maintenance of the roads that the EVs are doing. The other conversation that's been had is doing a per mile fee on the EVs. And I can't remember which session. I want to say it was 2021. They talked about having everybody go to a per mile fee. I don't like that. And I told them that I didn't like doing that. And so it didn't really go anywhere. I think it turned into a study. Um, and so personally, I think that, we need to address the EVs. I've had those conversations with them. And the idea that I like is to say, all right, let's take our car registration and let's try to lower it for everyday Americans, everyday Nevadans. And then let's tack on a little bit for the EVs. And so they're paying into the per mile fee, but at the same time, let's lower the registration a little bit for the everyday Nevadan citizen so they can get a little bit of help, especially, when inflation was so high. Was not able to get any traction on that last session. Still having those conversations. We'll see where that heads, but I agree. We need to have the EVs helping contribute to the roads. Then again, looks like the Democrats are setting all the EVs on fire, so there may not be any EVs anymore.
Very, very true. Sorry, I am trying to look up what you sent me as well. Jerry has another question. It's very long in multiple comments, but he's basically asking about he wants to say that any new film economic proposals should include a culinary union waiver fee. He is very frustrated and calls it a scam for far too long that a single labor union can have such command over growth and expansion of film productions and film related economic growth in Nevada. Any comment on that?
I totally understand your frustration there, Jerry. Um, and it was interesting if you go back and you watch the testimony and you listen to all of the support. It was all of the union members that were there in support of it. Just a lot for that reason. Um, you know, I would personally like to see the current film tax credit either be restructured or go away, because currently we're losing. Um, I want to say we lose 70 cents on every dollar that we give out to the film industry, and so it's not producing a return on our investment to this state. Um, sure, it means movies are made in the state of Nevada, but to be honest, if they're going to make a Hangover 4, they're going to make a Hangover 4 in Nevada. They're not going to do it in California. So I think they need that Las Vegas Boulevard screen. And so to me, it's a little frustrating. It's one thing if you want to create jobs for the state, and then also ultimately create um, additional tax revenue in the future by giving out some tax abatements up front. And there's a return to the state and to the people. Those are conversations that I like having. I don't necessarily like to see the state losing money. But then again, that's the entrepreneurial side of me that just, if I'm going to go and spend money, I want to make money off of it. So,
Absolutely. All right. I want to talk about, we have about 10 minutes left in our hour. It always goes so quickly. Um, I want to let everyone know that one of the governor's bills has been introduced so far.
Mhm.
That's his attainable housing bill. So that's going to be discussed a lot here in the near future. And do we know, has a hearing been set yet for his education bill? Because there have been, Chelsea's on, she has a lot of education questions, whether it be special education, education funding. I just didn't know the exact status with that. If that has been given a hearing as of yet. I know that one is exempt, and so it is not held to that April 11th deadline.
So, two things. One, the education bill's not out yet. Only the
Okay.
housing bill came out. Unless it came out today in the Senate side, I didn't have a chance to go look, but I
Yeah.
don't think that it did because I would have gotten an email um, from staff letting me know that it came out, or a text from the governor.
Right.
But his housing bill did come out. There's some things that I really like in it. He's trying to lower some of the construction costs by basically mandating that the local entities reduce some of the permitting fees. I need to go through the bill language, but I think he's proposing using some state funds to help pay for some of those. So it might be impact fees, it might be just the permitting fees. I'm not exactly sure what it was. Again, the bill just dropped, and I spent only about 5 minutes going through it, just kind of getting the highlights of it. Um, so those were some things that I really liked. And the other thing that I liked was, and this was something I kind of went into a little bit of detail with, is that it would mandate that an expedited review and permit process um, be established by all of the different state agencies, all of the quasi government entities, and all of the regulated utilities like, NV Energy, Southwest Gas, etc. Um, and so to me, I was like, well, that's great, because there's been some times that I've heard back home in Pahrump, in one of the other water company service areas, that it takes months to get through some of the state agency process, um, just to get a water service tap approved by the state. And so to me, I'm like, amen, we need to do this. Let's get on top of this. Another thing that I wanted to highlight that I know has come up in previous town halls is the governor's proposing to do some license reciprocity across state lines in the rural parts of the state where it might be very difficult to get a licensed HVAC contractor or electrical contractor in some of the smaller communities throughout rural Nevada. And so I thought that was something good that I should mention to you guys, because I know you've been asking about it. And so, and then in regards to the education bill, I don't want to bust the bubble, but I will talk about a couple of things that I think will be okay. I hope the governor doesn't yell at me later, but that's all right if he does. He really is trying to um, have more accountability in the school districts, because we know that we've made improvements over the last 2 years, but we're still at the bottom, and we have to make more progress and move up and do better for our children. So he's proposing some open enrollment policies. Um, He's also, wants to recruit and reward the best teachers. And so he's looking at trying to implement a merit pay system to reward those teachers that do a great job. And again, I don't want to get too far into it, because I don't want to burst his bubble. It's his bill. So I'm going to save some of that for another day. But I did want to kind of highlight those three little areas that will be coming forward in his bill, because I do think that it's important. Um, I think anybody that's doing a good job should be rewarded for their performance, and that's the best way to get a lot of the improvements. Is, hey, if you do better, we'll pay you more.
And I know I've already lost it. There's just too much going on in the chat. It's wild tonight. But Michael wanted to know, do we have the exact bill numbers for any of the governor's bill?
The
I know the
housing bill
housing.
is Assembly Bill 540. We do not have bill numbers yet for the other bills.
That's right. That's what I thought. I thought it was just housing, but all right. Ryan has a question. Is there any bill that will include the inclusion of physical therapists and medical lab technologists to the HEAL program? These careers are severely needed in the rules. I guess what I wondered is those compact bills, there's so many compact bills bringing more people, medical professionals to our state. I know there was one specifically about physical therapists. Does it address that specifically? I don't know if you know that answer or not.
No, I don't know that it addresses that specifically, but I know that Senate Bill 266, I believe, is floating out there, Ryan. I've taken a couple of notes. I didn't look to see who the bill sponsor was of that yet, but I'll take a look at that because I know that they are trying to expand the HEAL program uh, to include a few more, and those are some other areas that we should look at. So I'll follow up on that, Ryan. And those that don't know what the HEAL program um, is something that kind of I started working on back in 2019. And it was how do we recruit and retain medical professionals, doctors specifically, out into the rural communities, and now the entire state of Nevada is considered underserved when it comes to medical professions, and so we've expanded it since then. So 2019, I worked on it. 2021, Assemblywoman Kasama worked on it. And then last legislative session, we worked with Treasurer Zach Conine to try to get that across the finish line in what ultimately is now called the HEAL program. And Treasurer Conine, he went and found the money because it's about his bill was 5 million. I got another half a million where I got some federal matching funds for the graduate medical program to do loan forgiveness for medical professionals. And it's, we prioritize rural Nevada. So if you work in rural Nevada for 5 years, we're going to help you with your tuition, only tuition. We're not looking at covering your living expenses or anything like that. But what we noticed was 48 other states were doing this, including, I think, Puerto Rico. And so the state of Nevada was lagging way behind. And so to try to recruit and retain some of the medical professionals that we needed, we decided we needed to have a very similar program to what they did. And that was one of the bills that we worked across the aisle with Treasurer Conine to come up with what we feel is a pretty good program. I think last time I heard there was like hundreds of applicants, but only like 50 slots that they were able to utilize. And so it's been fairly successful, I believe. Ryan probably knows more about that than I do because I know he's in the field. But I will look at the PT and the lab technician portion probably tomorrow or the next day, Ryan.
And let me add this. It appears that both bills that amend the providers in the HEAL program focus on adding behavioral health professionals, specifically marriage and family therapists and drug and alcohol counselors. That is from a rural behavioral health therapist who is watching right now, who gave us that information. I also wanted to add that so many of these compact bills, like the compact bills that you're bringing, that the whole purpose of that is to bring more medical professionals and to address, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, pay issues for some of these doctors as well, correct? Or
Well,
not correct?
it's no, it's not necessarily for pay bills. What it is the interstate compacts allow for reciprocity across state lines. And so, as everybody knows, Nevada is a very transient state. People move in, move out, more moving in than are moving out because we are a great state still. And so we need to be able to allow people to get to work quicker. Some of these licenses, when you come from another state, they take 6 months before you can get licensed to do your job, to do what your profession is. And, you start getting into some of the military family and their spouses, and they have these special licenses, things that we need in this state, but they can't work here, even though they get moved to Nellis or Creech. And they can't go to work, and so even though their spouse is stationed at a military base, they have to wait 6-8 months to get their license. So what these compacts will do is say, if you're in another state that has very similar rules and regulations to what we have, you can go to work in a matter of hopefully days. And because you've already had your background check. We know that we can go into the interstate compact and say, all right, you're not a violent criminal. Your license is in good standing. There's no major red flags. We can get you. We can get you to work to serving the state of Nevada and the citizens in the areas that are much needed. And so there are several interstate compacts in the medical realm right now that are making their way through. I think 6 of them have probably had hearings already. I believe mine actually already had a work session, was voted out, sent to the floor, and has been re-referred to Ways and Means, which is the budget committee. So those are moving quickly because it's completely bipartisan. We all understand the need to get more medical professionals, not only into the state, but working as fast as possible.
Okay, and then because there's so many comments about this, do you know if there is any with the Medicaid topics and whatnot, is there any talk about reimbursements and improving reimbursements for doctors and medical professionals who don't get paid what they're so deserved?
So last session, we put some guardrails on what is known as the provider fee. Provider fee is something that's been on the books for many years. Um, and basically, what it says is that if the hospitals choose, or a certain medical group choose to tax themselves, the state will collect that revenue and then use it for reimbursement towards Medicaid. Now, the guardrails that the hospitals obviously wanted was that the state legislators wouldn't raid their general fund dollars out of Medicaid if they start taxing themselves, because they don't want to tax themselves. They're looking at trying to get reimbursement rates higher and do a lot of things. And so, really good news on that. That went into effect. The state of Nevada started collecting it, and the Trump administration actually expedited the first payment. Ironically, I believe it is April 11th that first payment is going to go out. So all this talk about Medicaid cuts, we're actually in the state of Nevada seeing the exact opposite. Is we're actually seeing increased payments because of the provider fee and because President Trump's administration has been able to expedite it in working with Governor Lombardo and his administration to bring those dollars back into the state, which then will in return help increase the Medicaid reimbursement rates that we're seeing. And so and don't hold me to this exact date, but I believe it's April 11th. Those first increased payments are supposed to be going out, and so that is some really good news. Probably faster than we could move with new legislation this cycle, because we did it last cycle. And again, the Trump administration has actually expedited those payments to come to us, and those should be going out fairly soon.
All right. Well, it's been a jam-packed hour. I do want to give Chelsea the last word because she's asked this many times and I just have not been able to get to it. And it's not really a question, it's more of a statement anyway. And she just wanted to let everyone know that as a sitting school board trustee, she has reached out to all of our federal legislators, that would be your members of Congress and the Senate, to come to a roundtable regarding special education and the crisis that we have in the state. Not one of them have responded to her, even though she's reached out multiple times. She said, shame on them for trying to exploit now and make Trump and Lombardo the bad guy when it comes to education. So that was her comment. I was going to let her get the last word there. And there's still much more to be done on the education front and a lot more news to happen. And we will talk about that in live town halls just like this one, because we do them weekly. And I guess you got something to add. So add it, please.
I do want to add something to that because Chelsea mentioned it. I want the people to know that Chelsea's one of our school board trustees, and our federal delegates are not responding to her. What I can say is that she has decided that she's shifting her gears, and a number of the Nye County Board of Trustees, as well as the Clark County Board of Trustees, have come up and they've met with me. They've reached out to the governor's office. They've reached out to the members on the education committee, and we are trying to work collaboratively together. And so I want you guys to know that your voices are being heard when you reach out to us. The federal delegates may not be listening. They may have their hand wherever, their head in the sand. But we do listen. We do want to work with you. You guys are the ones that are the experts in the field. We are not the experts. We just simply take the advice that you give us. We try to vet it and put it into policies. And so, Chelsea, thank you. I know Nathan Gent's been up here. Thank you. Dr. Gent was up here. So thank you all for what you do at the local level that helps us do our job and make great policies for the state of Nevada. We could not do this without you.
Absolutely, 100%. All right. Well, our time today has come to an end, but remember, we are the only members, I believe, in the entire legislature that do this weekly to keep you informed, to take your questions, to take your comments, whether they're complimentary or not. The goal here is to make sure that you have your voice heard, and that is what it is all about. So, thank you for joining us for this week's town hall. We will be having another one on Facebook, on Instagram, on StreamYard, and other platforms next week. And we'll have that link for you in the coming days. So thank you for that. And as always, Assemblyman Hafen, I'll give you the final word before we say goodnight.
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to my staff, Tracy, Cody, Elijah, Ryan, Jack, all of our great staff, all of you. We really appreciate everything that everyone does to help us do our job. It's very limited time up here, and so we move at a very fast pace. But we are so appreciative of all that you guys do. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you as well. All right, everyone, have a fantastic rest of your evening, and we'll see you back here next week.